Hello everyone, this is International Master Robert Jamieson from Kids Unlimited in Melbourne, Australia. And for today's video, I thought we might have a little chat about tactics. There's a saying in chess that tactics rule, which I think is pretty true. If you're only good at tactics, you can probably become a pretty good player, maybe up to FIDE Master, something like that, because chess is a little bit like cricket. If you're a batsman in cricket, one mistake, you get bowled out. In chess, you blunder your queen, you lose the game. So you have to be able to see tactics both for yourself and your opponent. All right, how do we get good at tactics? Now, we're not a computer, we can't analyze every move. How do we make certain we see the tactics that are in the position? Well, there's two elements to analysing. There's a question of how deep you analyse each variation and a question of how many moves, like candidate moves, you look at. So there's width and there's depth. So we have to use our imagination to make certain we look at all the attacking tactical possibilities in the position. How we train our brain to do that is through something called pattern recognition. So, for instance, it's a really good exercise to get a book like 1001 Checkmates or do chess puzzles on the web these days. So you go through all these puzzles and you hopefully put them in your memory bank so that when something similar appears in your game, your brain kicks in and goes, aha, I recognise this. I think I can do a fork here or have a chance for a back rank checkmate, something like that. So it makes it easier if the patterns are in your brain for pattern recognition to kick in. All right, now the game I've chosen, I was having a look today, there was a site that had the 10 best games of 2021. So I played through them and they were pretty good games. And this one appealed to me. It's from the online chess Olympiad between two, I'm presuming, women grandmasters, Alexandra Kosteniuk, 25-26, and Irina Krush, 24-29. The higher rated player playing white, Alexandra, is the victor. So we're going to mainly focus on white's play. So let's have a go and see if we can spot the tactics. All right, E4, C5, Sicilian defense. D6, dragon variation. Those are all pretty normal book moves. If you're a beginner, your coach would have told you knights before bishops. So this opening is clearly following that recommendation. Bishop G5, E6. I think this is called the Rouser variation. Queen D2. So it looks like white is going to castle queenside and put black's D6 pawn under pressure on the open file, perhaps. Bishop E7, castles A6. All right, so that's preventing a knight from going here, putting pressure on the weak pawn, obviously. Now have a little look here. What would you play as white? Would you perhaps play a normal move like King B1, given the castle queenside, to get your king closer to the corner? Or something else that appeals? Okay, white chose takes. So normally you'd say, well, I'm giving up my great knight in the center for a less good knight, and when he takes back, I'm improving his B pawn is coming closer to the center. So why would I want to do this? All right, what's the reason? Depends on the next move. So what's the follow-up move? Follow-up move is another take. So the reason is black cannot now take with the bishop because he'll lose the D6 pawn. Have a good bishop, but I think I'd still rather be white with an extra pawn. So black is forced to take with a pawn. All right, so that means he's got double pawns, no big deal, because the pawn's better closer to the middle. It means that when he castles kingside, his king's going to be very airy. So that's probably good for white. on the negative side, black has this huge mass of centre pawns controlling all the squares in front of it, so that's a bit hard to get through if white wants to attack. All right, let's see what we do now. Bishop there. That's sort of a normal looking square for the bishop. You could well argue, well, is this a good spot? It's bumping into this pawn chain. Maybe at some stage black's going to chase it away. So is that really a good spot or not? We'll have to wait and see. Black castles. And white develops his other rook. All right. As a general rule of thumb, I've mentioned in the past, if you want to work out who the better player is, have a look at where their pieces are. The player who has his pieces grouped together and coordinated is usually the better player. So here, white has all his men nicely in the middle, ready to do something. Blacks are more spread out, and there's 3 pieces that haven't even got off the back rank yet. Now, white has an obvious target, the black king, because it's a bit airy. But again, he's got to work out how to get through these centre pawns. Okay. Black could well consider playing d5 here, perhaps. But instead, he puts his king in the corner. So obviously getting his king more protected, and the rook can come here and sort of help cover the king as well. Okay. So we're all dressed up. Do we play the king b1, another sort of waiting move to get our position totally ready, or do we start attacking? Now, if we want to attack, as I've explained before, we need more space, we need more attackers and defenders, that sort of thing. But the first step is to identify where we're going to attack and the weak point. So clearly, we should be attacking the black king. He's pretty lonely over there and he's a bit open up. What is the weak point? So have a think, what square around the black king is the weak point? I think you probably agree the weak point is h7. So we've got to think about, all right, how can we focus on that weak point? So white plays rook e3, so that he can swing his rook across and start attacking. Okay, black moves his rook, so he's now attacking the g pawn, and he can defend with his rook here and live happily ever after. Okay, f4, so that's logical. So now the queen has defended the g pawn, and the rook hasn't been blocked. The rook can still swing across to h3. Okay. Now black says, all right, I'm going to put the question to your bishop. You put it on c4 out in range of my pawns. So attack on bishop. All right, now we could just move it back to b3 or something. That would be possible. But white doesn't do that. White plays queen e2. So that means that the pawn can't take the bishop because the rook would be on the queen. And now the queen is probably ready to zoom up to h5, backed up by the rook, and get our attack going. But black has a look around here, and he thinks he might have a chance for a tactic. So have a look. What would you play if you were black? So generally you look around for things to attack, weak points or things that are unprotected. Black plays bishop d6. So attacking the f4 pawn. So if, for instance, white defended it, that's all fine, but now his rook can't get across to h3 to join in the attack. So white quite logically says, well, okay, I don't want to play a defensive move. You're not developed yet, and my pieces are developed, so I want to attack quickly before you can get all your defenders out. So go away, bishop. Okay, black takes, go away bishop. All right, where do we put our bishop? We clearly attack the rook. Now, if you were white, it might be dawning on you that perhaps you have a little problem. Your rook is attacked by bishop, so that's a problem. But how do you get out of it? Have a little look. Can you see the problem? What happens when I move my rook? So the problem is, say I move my rook here, black can go check, getting his queen out of the line of my rook here, and go free bishop. Oh, okay. What do we do? White decides rook h3 anyway. All right. Black goes you beauty, check. King blocks. Piece up. So either white has blundered a piece, which is quite possible. It's a little bit difficult to see this coming, or he sacrificed a piece. But anyway, this should well and truly focus his mind. He is now a piece down. If he doesn't do something drastic in the next couple of moves, black's going to complete his development and say thanks for the game. All right, so white's brain is now in save the game tactics mode. So he has to look for things to threaten, and he either has to get some material back or checkmate black's king quickly, or he's just going to go down on material. All right, white has a pretty obvious threatening move. Hope you can see it. Knight fork, forking the queen and the bishop. All right, so the only way, no, not the only way, black could play queen e7, I guess, to defend, but then probably terrible things might happen, like knight in here, rook in here, queen in here, and I have a subtle threat of queen takes pawn with mate coming up. So black says, all right, I'm taking a pawn as well. So I've got my queen out of the attack, I've defended my bishop, and I'm now a bishop and a pawn ahead. All right, let's go back to white. So you're now in more desperate attack mode. What can you do? Look for something to attack, to threaten. Hopefully play it quickly and put your opponent back under pressure. All right, can you see an attacking move? Rook h5. All right, this looks pretty good because we're attacking the queen. And if the queen moves, then we can gobble the bishop, get our piece back. All right, so black has a big decision to make. Does he give the piece back, like say retreats his queen here or something? Or does he call white's bluff and say, I'm hanging on to this piece, mate, f5, I'm a piece up. Do you have anything? All right, if you were black, what would you do? Queen g7 or pawn to f5? Have a little think. Okay. One important skill in chess is to realize when to bail out. So if you're being attacked, normally the attacker has sacrificed some material to get his attacking position. So you can hang on to all that extra material and hope for the best and hope you don't get checkmated. Or you can give some of it back to hopefully try and blunt his attack. So recognizing the position where you should give it back is the important skill. Now, is this that position? Or no, it's white's attack's not that good, I'm going to keep the extra material? Well, the answer is he should have given it back. So we could go queen there, knight takes, say, rook here. Black's a pawn up, but his king's fairly safe now, and he has aggressive pieces as well. His pawn's a bit over the shop. Probably fairly even, maybe teensy bit better for black. All right, but black wasn't into that. He says, I'm hanging on to it. All right. So the game is in the balance over the next couple of moves. We are a piece down. We are a pawn down. If we move our knight, he's going to be able to swap queens. So put your tactics cap on. Remember, look for the weak point. What is your next move? What do you think? So remember to look widely, look for all the tactical ideas. So look at a number of candidate moves. Here, there's probably not too many to look at. You'd probably look at rook takes pawn check, king takes, queen check, king here. Check him some more. Do we have perpetual? Probably not. I think he's just escaping. So we didn't do that. White instead moved his knight, sacrificing his queen. Now, of course, if you had 1 second and you're a beginner, you'd probably go queen takes queen, you beauty. But you'd come back to earth rather quickly because white would then have mate in 1. All right, so we have to defend the h-pawn because it's mate in 1. So we could play queen g7 or maybe queen c7, shall we say. Which would you play? Black to play. What move would you choose? We can't play rook up because then rook check is going to be a disaster. So it's only the 2 queen moves. Or we could play rook takes knight. But again, that would be fairly horrible, I'm thinking, because we've got rook check and then rook takes rook check. Yuck. Okay. So queen g7, queen c7. We decided if black plays queen g7, white has a fantastic move here. Have you seen it in your analysis? If not, have a little look now. We could go here and get the queen for rook and knight, but black's got rook and 2 bishops for a queen. Tend to be dodgy. All right, the brilliant move for white. White can play queen e5. Look at that. Threatening rook takes pawn mate. And if you take me, rook takes pawn mate. So in the game, black didn't do that. He went queen c7. And guess what happened? Something pretty similar. Queen e5 again. Would you like a free queen? He said, no, I wouldn't. So he's defended his queen. He's defended the checkmate. But his queen is overloaded. Can you see the winning move? Not that hard. We're attacking with a queen, a rook, and a knight, and we've nearly broken through. All right, the winning move, rook check. Queen has to take rook, and then thanks for the game. Okay, so that was quite a pretty finish. Nice little bit of tactics there with those queen e5 moves. But black should have bailed out by giving the material back. Maybe next time he won't be so greedy. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that game and perhaps learned a little bit about tactics on the way. I'll see you in the next video.